The scream of expensive brakes on gravel tore through the quiet woods and made my head snap up. I had one hand on the cabin doorframe, the other on a 5-gallon gas can, listening to the dying cough of the old pump inside. The air smelled like cold metal and fresh pine, the kind of cold that makes bolts squeal when you turn them. A black SUV slid sideways into my snowy drive and stopped too close to the porch. The door opened, and a woman stepped out like she was walking onto a stage she never wanted, dark hair loose under a baseball cap, a white tank under an open flannel, a heavy duffel on one shoulder. The bag looked heavy. She looked like she had carried heavier. She looked at the cabin, then at me, then at the half-buried tire of my truck stuck on a snowbank. "You're back?" she asked. "Depends who's asking." She adjusted the strap of her duffel. The leather creaked. Clara Rhodes. The Trust sent me. The Trust? That word always landed wrong. I glanced past her at the SUV. Tinted windows, engine still running. Someone inside watching us. "Your driver can turn around," I said. "This road is a dead end." Her jaw tightened. "He's not my driver. Then he can still turn around." She didn't look back, but the SUV rolled down the drive anyway and parked near the road like it owned the place. Clara let out a small breath through her nose, the kind someone makes when they're trying not to show nerves. "My family dumped me here to learn a lesson," she said. I set the gas can down. My gloves squeaked on the metal. "What lesson?" I asked. She looked at the rotting logs on the cabin's corner, at the sagging gutter, at everything falling apart. That I can't buy my way out of problems. I looked at her clean shoes, the expensive SUV, the glossy duffel bag that didn't match any of this mountain life. "Then let me tell you the first rule," I said. "You don't break in my snow. The cabin wasn't mine. It belonged to the Rhodes Family Trust. They paid me to keep it from collapsing and to winterize it before the next storm shut us in. I had been living out of my truck and the small mudroom for a week, sleeping in a bag that smelled like diesel and old smoke." Clara stepped onto the porch like she had never stepped on wood that could bend. Her sharp eyes moved over the stacked lumber, the tools, the open pump access panel. "You're staying here?" she asked. "I'm working here. Those are the same thing. Not where I'm from." Her gaze shifted to the pump closet where the wet floor showed the pump had spit water and quit again. "You said the water works," she said. "It will," I answered. "That's not an answer." Before I could reply, the SUV door opened. A man stepped out wearing a suit coat in the snow like he had no idea where he was. He moved toward us with his phone raised like it could scare the weather. Clara's shoulders went rigid. "Who's that?" I asked. "Either my father's insurance guy or his lawyer," she said. "Depends on the day." The man barely made it 3 steps before slipping on the ice. He caught himself on my truck, then glared at me like I had placed the mountain here just to annoy him. He walked up with a stiff smile. "Denton," he said. "Mr. Rhodes' office." I didn't take his outstretched hand. "Rhodes bad. You shouldn't be here." He looked past me at Clara. She shouldn't either. "I'm fine, Denton," Clara said sharply. He ignored her and raised his phone. "My job is to document the property." "Liability. You can film from the county road," I said. He blinked like no one had spoken to him that way. "This is trust property," he said. "And this is my work site," I answered. "Walk down the drive before you break your hip." Before he could argue, an old Ford truck pulled up. My foreman, Sam. Snow on the hood, chains on the tires. He rolled the window down and looked Denton over like he was a misshaped fence post. "Beck," he said. "Who's the city fellow lost in the mountains?" "No idea." Sam grinned. "Storm's coming. He'll learn." Denton's face flushed pink. He retreated down the drive, slipping again. Clara watched him go. Her chin stayed high, but her eyes didn't. Something in her looked tired, like she had been fighting a long time and didn't trust anyone to help her. Hours later, freezing rain turned to wet snow. The sky went steel gray. I was in the pump closet with a headlamp on, sleeves rolled up, elbows wet, trying to coax life out of the stubborn motor. The cabin had no heat. The stove wasn't safe yet. The air inside felt colder than the outside. Clara stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, trying not to show she was shivering. "You said the water would be back," she said. "It will." That's still not an answer. I shut off the breaker. The pump went dead. The sudden silence made the storm sound even louder. I pulled out the cracked gasket and held it up. "This is why you don't have water." Clara leaned closer despite herself. Her perfume was faint under the cold. "That tiny thing?" she asked. "It's not tiny when it sits between you and drinking." A small huff escaped her. Then she caught it like she was afraid of giving me too much. "Can you fix it?" she asked quietly. "I can, but I need parts." "Then order them." "Roads closing. Trucks won't make it up for days." She blinked fast. Her eyes shined for a second before she turned her face away. "I can't stay here without water," she whispered. "You can. You just don't want to." Her eyes snapped to mine. "You don't know what I want. I know you want this fixed." "So do I. And we're doing it the ugly way." She swallowed. "What's the ugly way?" I pulled a strip of leather from my old belt. "We make our own." By nightfall, the cabin smelled like wet wool and sealant. The storm slapped the windows in heavy waves. The SUV that brought Clara earlier had disappeared. Denton's courage had limits. Sam had gone home before the ice thickened, leaving me with a generator, 2 fuel cans, and a warning I didn't ignore. "Lock the door," he told me. "Storm brings strange men." "I always lock the door," I said. Clara heard the exchange and stayed quiet. She sat at the table near my headlamp while I cut leather, punched holes, and layered sealant with slow, steady strokes. She watched every move, not admiring, measuring, like she wanted to see what kind of man was fixing her water. "You do this for a living?" she asked. "I do what needs doing. That's not a living." I didn't answer. I set the homemade gasket into the coupling and tightened the bolts. My knuckles were raw. The cold split the skin at the creases. Clara's eyes followed every turn of the wrench. When I flipped the breaker, the pump groaned, shook, then caught. Water rushed through the pipes with a hungry sound. Clara's shoulders lowered just a little. She stepped to the sink and turned the faucet. Rust spit out first, then clear water. She held her hands under it like she didn't trust it. She didn't smile, but her breath came out softer. "You're welcome," I said. "How much? For what?" "Tonight. The water. The work. You're already paying through the trust. That's not tonight." She opened her duffel and pulled out a watch box. Boy, inside was a heavy watch that looked like it belonged in a safe, not in a mountain cabin. "Take this," she said. "No. It's worth more than your truck. It's clean. It's mine. No strings." "I don't need favors," I said. "I need a bill." She tightened her jaw. Her fingers shook just a little. "Write it down, Beck. Materials, labor, all of it." I watched her hands tremble, then steady. She wasn't spoiled. She was scared of being seen as spoiled. That was different. "Fine," I said. "Then you work." Her head jerked up. "Excuse me? You want to pay? You earn your way into the work. You don't stand in my doorway and throw jewelry at problems." I pointed to the mask hanging by the tools. "You sand logs tomorrow. You wear that. You do it my way." Clara stared at me like no one had spoken to her like that in years. Then she nodded once. Deal. The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm. Cold mornings. Hard work. Silence that wasn't uncomfortable. Clara worked beside me, not fast, not smooth, but she worked. She sanded until her hands blistered, then wrapped her palms in tape without asking for help. She carried boards too heavy for her weight, but she carried them anyway. When she slipped on ice, she didn't yell. She caught herself and kept going. The first time she cut her knuckle, she stared at the blood like it was an insult. "Pressure," I said, handing her a rag. She pressed on the cut herself. I know. At night, the cabin warmed under the soft orange glow of the old stove. Clara opened her laptop at the table and worked under the shaky signal of a cheap hotspot. Her screen showed spreadsheets, legal documents, numbers, email drafts. I didn't ask what she was doing. Not yet. One night, I set a mug of coffee beside her. She didn't look up. I didn't ask for that, she said. I know. Her fingers paused for 1 second before she picked up the mug. On a clear day, I showed her how to bleed the pressure line at the well house. Valve here, I said. Then crack this open. Clara repeated the steps carefully and got it right the first time. You teach like you're angry, she said. I teach like I want you alive. She held my eyes longer than she should have, then looked away. It happened on a bright Tuesday. The sky hurt to look at. We were on the roof chopping ice when 2 shiny trucks rolled up the drive. Not locals. 2 men stepped out with clipboards and hard hats. One had a camera strapped to his chest. Clara froze beside me. I climbed down the ladder fast and met them before they reached the porch. Beck Blackwood? Clipboard asked. That's me. We're here on behalf of Roads Global Compliance. Property Risk Assessment. I didn't take the folder he held out. You need permission to be here, I said. Chest camera smiled. We don't need permission. It's private property. It's a permitted restoration site, I said. You need my say. Clipboard tried to look past me at Clara. Miss Rhodes, we need a few minutes. Standard procedure. Clara stepped forward, crowbar still in her hand. Her voice was steady, but her grip was tight. Standard for who? She asked. For you, Clipboard said. For your safety. I moved half a step in front of her. Camera off, I said. Chest camera's smile thinned. Or what? Or you leave. Clipboard exhaled like I was making his life difficult. We can make this complicated. Your permits? I took a picture of their plates with my phone. Next is the sheriff. Silence fell heavy. Then Clara's voice cut through the cold. If you're here on behalf of Roads Global, she said, tell my father I've been reading his merger documents. Clipboard blinked. Excuse me? Tell him, Clara said, that I'm not learning his lesson. I'm learning his math. Both men shifted like the ground moved under them. Then they left. When their trucks were gone, Clara didn't relax. She stared down the road until the wind swallowed everything.
You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. I did.
They were here to intimidate me. No, I said. They were here to make sure you felt alone. Clara looked at me. Something changed in her eyes. Something real. I'm not alone, she said. The blizzard hit before midnight. It slammed into the cabin with a roar. The wind screamed against the logs. Snow blew under the doorframe. I felt the pressure drop in my ears. Then the generator hiccuped. The cabin went dim. The air smelled wrong, sharp, thin. Smoke curled back into the room from the stove. Carbon monoxide. Clara! I shouted. No answer. I shouldered her bedroom door open. She sat on the floor near the cold hearth, knees pulled to her chest, eyes unfocused. I'm fine, she whispered. You're not. I pulled her up. She stumbled. I caught her around the waist and carried her out to the porch. The wind cut like a blade, but the air was clean. She sucked in sharp breaths, clinging to my sleeve. Inside, alarms started screaming. Outside, Clara pulled herself closer to the post and steadied her breathing. You're bleeding, she said. It's the cold. Her eyes followed me as I fought the storm to fix the generator. Her face pale but locked on me like counting each step would keep me alive. By morning, the cabin was warm again. We were alive because of work, not luck. That night, Clara opened an envelope that changed everything. A settlement, a deed transfer, her freedom bought with her own strength. Then she slid a partnership agreement toward me. Blackwood Restorations. You're sure? I asked. Clara nodded. Her voice was low and steady. I want to build something that stays. I stepped closer. You want me, she said quietly, but you're not saving me, right? I want you, I said, but only if you stand with me. Her breath hitched. She stepped in. I cupped her jaw and waited. She leaned into me. The kiss was sharp and full of heat. No fear, no doubt. When we pulled apart, she stayed close. Tomorrow, she said, we drive to the lake. And after that? I asked. She looked at the snowy valley. We fix the places people gave up on, she said, and we do it without asking permission. The next morning, the sky was a pale silver sheet over the valley. Snow sat high on the branches, heavy enough to bow the pines. Clara stood on the porch with her duffel over her shoulder and her cap pulled low. She looked steady, head focused, different from the woman who had stepped off that SUV the first day.
"We leaving now?"
she asked. As soon as I load the tools. She nodded and stepped aside, but her eyes stayed on me, not watching, checking, like she had decided something overnight and wanted to see if morning light changed it. We drove down the mountain in my old truck. The heater rattled, the windows fogged. Clara sat close enough that her shoulder brushed mine each time the truck bounced through a rut. She didn't move away. I didn't either. When we reached the lake road, she leaned forward. "That's the place," she said. Oh, the cabin stood alone at the water's edge. Snow weighed down its roof. The porch sagged. Icicles hung from the gutters in long, clear daggers. The front door was half buried in a drift. Clara exhaled in a slow, steady line. "It looks worse than the pictures," she said. "That's why she hired you," I said. "Us," Clara corrected. I looked at her profile, the strong line of her jaw, the new steadiness in her voice. She wasn't trying to impress anyone now. She wasn't trying to escape anything either. She had something she was building. We stepped out of the truck. Cold air wrapped around us like a warning. The lake was a flat gray mirror with a thin crust of ice forming near the shore. Clara pulled her gloves on and walked straight to the broken porch beam. "This load isn't supported," she said. I nodded. "Good eye." She tried to hide the small smile that tugged at her mouth, but I saw it anyway. We spent the morning clearing snow, checking pipes and marking what needed immediate repair. Clara worked without complaint. She carried lumber, shoveled paths, wrote notes, and kept her hair tucked under that worn baseball cap like she'd always been meant to work in the cold. Around noon, she paused near the window and wiped fog off the glass with her sleeve. The lake shimmered pale blue beneath a brief break in the clouds. "You ever think your life would look like this?" she asked. "No," I said, "but it feels right." She turned toward me. Her eyes were softer now. "I didn't think anything in my life would ever feel right." I stepped closer, slow enough that she could move if she wanted. She didn't. Her breath curled in the cold air between us. "You earned this," I said. She shook her head. "I fought for it. Earning comes next." I liked that answer more than I should have. We spent the rest of the day hauling materials from the truck to the porch. On the last load, Clara slipped on a patch of ice. I caught her by the waist before she fell. Her hands gripped my jacket. Her breath rose quick and warm against my throat. For a moment, neither of us moved. "You good?" I asked. "Yes," she said, but her voice was quiet, almost unsure. I helped her stand. She didn't let go right away. When she finally did, her fingers dragged against mine like she wasn't completely ready to break contact. Inside, the cabin was still cold. We set the generator outside and ran cables through the window. When the lights flickered on, Clara stepped back and looked at the room like she was seeing her future take shape one bulb at a time. "You know what my father told me before he dumped me on that mountain?" she asked. "What?" "That I don't understand the real world. That I've never worked for anything. That I break when things aren't easy." "Your father doesn't know you," I said. She looked at me with eyes that didn't flinch anymore. "You do," she said. Her words hit deeper than I expected. She didn't turn away. She waited, like I mattered. Like the answer mattered. I took a slow breath. "I know you don't quit," I said. "I know you work past the point most people stop. I know you don't want to be saved. You just want someone who doesn't lie to you." Her lips parted. Her breath shook for the first time in days. "And I know," I said, stepping closer, "that you didn't come here to learn a lesson. You came here to start over." Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. "With you?" "If you want," I said. She moved first. She closed the distance with a small step and lifted her chin. Her eyes held mine, clear and steady. I cupped her jaw gently, giving her space to pull away. She didn't. She leaned into me, soft at first, then sure. Her hands slid up my chest, gripping my jacket like she wanted to anchor herself to something real. The kiss warmed the cold air around us, slow and deep, full of every silent thing we hadn't said. When we pulled apart, she stayed close, her forehead nearly touching mine. "Beck," she whispered, "don't let me go back to who I was." "You're not going back," I said. "You're building something new, and I'm here for it." Clara smiled then. Not forced, not guarded, real. The kind of smile that didn't belong to the woman who stepped off that SUV. The kind of smile that belonged to someone who had chosen her own life. Outside, the sky began to clear. Light touched the lake. The valley spread wide and open in front of us. Clara looked at it with a steady breath. "We start tomorrow," she said. I nodded. Together, we stood there, side by side in a broken cabin that was about to become something new. Not because someone forced her to learn a lesson, but because she decided what her life would be from this moment forward, and she chose me to be part